Ladies and gents, it's the Preacher, and we're looking at Balanced Druid. I haven't looked at it since Alpha. Fun fact, it was the second spec I tried in all of Warlords of Draenor. As soon as I accessed to the Alpha, it was like, God, I've got to check out how the Balanced Druid is. It's undergone dramatic changes since Mist of Pandaria. The whole idea of casting spells to generate eclipse is gone. We've got this new pendulum style where it will automatically flick backwards and forwards between lunar and solar. And there was fear and trepidation. There were all kinds of things like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. We had sort of common sense feelings like, I don't have any control. I don't have any control. People really in fear of that. When I played it in the Alpha, I had to say, you know what? I don't mind this. I played it for a little while and I quite like it. I enjoy the way they're going with it. Everything looks pretty cool. It's alright. Don't worry about it. Since then, though, I've focused on many other classes, as you would expect. Yeah, we've been playing everything else in between. And now coming back to the Balanced Druid, what do I find? But I find hundreds of pages of discussion regarding the Balanced Druid and surgery, just dramatic surgery being done to alter and twist and misshape. One day Balanced Druids are overpowered, and this is the experience that many Moonkins have had over the course of Warlords of Draenor. Is every single week something is being either dramatically changed and nerfed and reworked, and previously on one day certain playstyles worked and then it was all smashed over and changed again. My God. My God, what a time to be a fucking Moonkin. Not easy. This might even be one of those specs that we need to revisit just before launch, as it seems to still be dramatically changed. We recently had things to survivability being cut like bark skin, having a 1 minute cooldown. Ugh. Nasty fucking business, let me tell you. Nasty business. There have been many occasions where I have missed that. On top of that, we definitely got our utility cut. Some people are arguing, no, not really, kind of. But I have to say, given the nature of the new dungeons and the difficulty increase that we are seeing in Warlords of Draenor, I would have given my fucking left talon, my left antler, to have goddamn tranquility. Oh my God, do I miss that spell so much. We have a buff towards Nature's Vigil, but of course if you haven't taken it, it's not going to be too useful. But I have found that since I started playing yesterday, I have taken Nature's Vigil consistently because, my God, oh, I just want my tranquility back so badly. So badly. So badly. So how is it playing? A lot of people, of course, when they see dramatic changes like we've seen to Eclipse, get fearful of their main class or something they were considering rolling and how is it going to play. So hopefully we'll address that today. Please look down below regarding DPS and all that kind of information if you're interested in it, as it is changing all the time on the beta. So please read below the video so you can get that for you. Right. Let's get into this. Where do we even start? I think a good place to start is the talent system itself. The talent system is something I've discussed heavily regarding the more hybrid styles of class. So, you know, your shamans and whatever, who have very, very varied specs. Each spec does something completely different. And what Bliss really tries to do is try and make them work across the board, and if not, they scrap them entirely and make unique talents in favor of that spec. So that's something that we see with the Moonkin. So our level 100 talents for Moonkin are Balance of Power, which works directly with Eclipses, and we have Solar Flare, an extra spell that we can cap, and Euphoria, while everything else remains the same, such as Incarnation, Soul, the Forest, and Force of Nature, blah, 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 blah. They remain the same. What we have is very unique level 100 talents for the Moonkin. Now, they alter everything pretty dramatically. I think we need to address that the biggest fear that we had about the Moonkin when the pendulum style of play came into effect was the lack of control. And was it okay or not was the big question. Is this alright? Is it something I can live with? Is it not? I dislike it. I do. I dislike it. And the more I played the Moonkin, the more I was like, you know, I just don't like this. What tends to happen is that during the leveling process, which is when we could play the Moonkin initially in the alpha video, is that the pendulum style of Eclipse was actually really, really nice. It was something I got into very quickly because even during the downtime between mobs or whatever, it was really nice to move on and be going straight probably back into Eclipse due to the fact that we were still slightly in combat. Your Eclipse bar would keep moving, so you were almost permanently in Eclipse. And I have to say, Moonkin's leveling experience is really good. I think it's one of the best out there at the moment, is due to this pendulum system. However, then we hit raid bosses, then we hit things in dungeons, then we hit the moments where we are actually giving a shit more than we are during leveling. We don't tend to care while we're leveling if we're in solar or lunar or just about to hit it. We don't really care, and therefore it's not a big deal. Then we hit a dungeon. what Moonkins are part of the huge depth of the class has always been is preparing for certain moments by controlling your eclipse. A very basic idea along that, as Moonkins will understand, is things like, oh, I need to be in solar for this moment because I do more AoE damage. Okay, something as simple as that. And what they would do traditionally is force their character to not change eclipse states and to be just before hitting solar. So at the very crucial moment that you needed to be in solar, you were. And it was the sign of a really good balanced druid, was able to foresee the situation, understand what needs to be done, and then control their character in terms of that. You can't do that anymore. And I have to say, it really hurts to be stuck. Because, like we've had in the past, certain eclipses are pretty shit at doing certain things. And you can't stop it. There's nothing you can do. It's completely out of your hands. And if it doesn't time right, it really does fucking suck. There's no doubt about it. It really does suck. So there are ways of making up with that with the level 100 talents, like I said earlier. One of those is Euphoria. It reduces the switch time between being in Eclipse by 50%. So you're in Eclipse all the time. By the time you come out of your Eclipse, you're basically into your next one. This actually happens so fast, and I have to say, I found it really boring. I'm really sorry. I found this very boring. As you'll see, I added to my notifications down the bottom whether or not I had the option to Moonfire or Sunfire, because you're swapping that quickly that you regardless end up staring at either your Eclipse bar, or you end up staring at the Moonfire or Sunfire, which now switch which spell you cast when you press that button. It's no longer a case of having the option of doing both. It happens so fast that it was just nice to have a little notification there saying you should be casting Luna now. And this then leads me to the crux of the problem, as I see it right now with the Balanced Druid, is that regardless of what you do, there is an optimal amount of spells you should be casting. Now you might say, well, that's pretty standard of everybody, right? Not really as much as it is now for the Moonkin, because of the pendulum system, you are absolutely being dictated 100% by Blizzard what spells you should be casting. And you have no choice in the matter. At all. You have absolutely no choice in the matter over what spell should be going on right now. And it very much feels like you're riding a wave. And you're riding a wave that's controlled by itself. It's absolutely, your interaction with the wave has no effect whatsoever. You can do absolutely nothing to make decisions, make choices, change the direction of the wave, change what's going to happen. You just have to sit on your little boat and ride the wave, and you just have to press the button that Blizzard's telling you to press. And that's quite literally it. No other class or spec in the game, as far as I'm aware, has this kind of, you must be pressing this now, or you're just regardlessly doing it wrong. In fact, most specs, if you look at something like a rogue who has anticipation, if you make a little error or you build up things, and in fact you can use that to more depthy gameplay, is that you can overcap your combo points. Okay? It's not a case of you're being completely screwed over by pressing the wrong thing. It's like, oh, I just totally wasted that. With the Moonkin, you are. In every scenario. And that's the important thing. This isn't just a one-off thing. Every single scenario. Because it's telling you what to press. Now, Blizzard kind of knows this, right? Blizzard kind of knows this. They're like, well, we've taken control away from the players. How can we rein that back in? How can we rein that back in so it's not that bad? The way they've done that is by kind of, and don't shoot the messenger here, making Eclipse kind of pointless. Alright? They've made it kind of pointless, and a lot of the talents actually reflect back on that. There is a synergy going on here, but not in a good way. Blizzard has decided that they will dictate to you what spells you should be pressing right now. But people will make mistakes. How do we rein that back in? One, the removal of snapshotting. So it now doesn't matter when you press Moonfire or Sunfire. Now you're going to say to me, those of you who've read the talents, oh, but yes, there's Lunar Peak and Solar Peak, which means that every time you hit your Lunar Eclipse or your Solar Eclipse, you get a buff, which will then mean that your Moonfire or Sunfire will do more damage. It doesn't really matter. The math points out that it doesn't matter if you do it or don't. It doesn't fucking matter as long as your dots are on. The damage difference is infinitesimal. Absolutely makes no difference whatsoever. We can look at talents like Stellar Flare. Stellar Flare, which is like, oh, if you read the tooltip, you're like, a powerful spell which benefits from both lunar and solar. That's cool. Dealing the most damage when they are balanced. That sounds really good. So that means to someone like me, and this is one of the errors I had, I'll tell you that on the live stream when I played Balance, I was like, this isn't working, right? My Eclipse is moving, and timing it really right is actually really fiddly, and I have to focus so much on it. Turns out that Stellar Flare does pretty much the same damage regardless of when you press it. Despite the fact that it has this tooltip, it doesn't really matter at all. It really doesn't matter. So I was looking at things like, well, you're just spamming Stellar... a good thing to do, guys, is to spam Stellar Flare on a lot of targets. And I'm like, why? Because it has a dot? I mean, surely we're doing other things when we're towards our lunar and solar cycles, right? No, not at all. In fact, it's built in, so it's if you cast it wrong, it doesn't really fucking matter. Huh. Okay. Along with Shadow Priest, they've kind of got a Dotless. Now, I use that word incorrectly and I'll explain why. With Balance of Power, the other level 100 talent. Yeah? The Balance of Power extends your Wraths and Starfires, extend the duration of your dots. Let me tell you, as soon as you cast your first Moonfire and Sunfire, you never cast dots again. It is essentially a dotless spec because the dots are utterly irrelevant. Remind you of something? Serpent Sting. This reminds me exactly of Serpent Sting. When talents like this exist, they only seek to drive away that portion of the spec. Right? And what we saw was like, oh, you should apply Serpent Sting to your target, expansion number 1, expansion number 2 or 3. Oh, now your Cobra Shot or whatever extends the duration of Serpent Sting, and now we get towards Adrenal, we've removed Serpent Sting, because it's a waste of time, it was up all the time, so we just built the damage in. And Shadow Priests are going through something similar now, where there's a dotless kind of spec, and now with the Moonkins, although it used to have a glyph that did this, now it's just a flat-out talent, and you can easily and very quickly have your dots ticking for a minute plus, meaning that you just don't bother, you just ride the wave in terms of Wrath and Starfire at that point. Oh, man. Oh, man. I've been playing it for a little while, and I've got to say, it works. And some people will really like the fact that you can make mistakes and it's not a huge deal. It's really not a huge deal at all, and it's designed that way. It really is designed that way. Many of you will take comfort in the fact that it's difficult to screw this up. There are some nice changes. Sunfire, when you drop it down, does afflict all the targets in the area within 5 yards, I believe it is, with Sunfire. Occasionally that screws us up for those of you who are resting on your laurels a little bit there with Sunfire. You will, of course, notice that 5 yards is not a very big distance in World of Warcraft, and many ads don't get affected by it sometimes. We all know those tanks who decide to tank their mobs in as if they're making a parade, and they're all over the place. But it's a minor problem, yeah? The actual benefit of it when it's done right and done in a raid and done with good tanks is really cool. Once Sunfire, boom, everything's got Sunfire on it. Happy fucking days. Others who really like to be in control, I have to question whether you'll enjoy it. If you really enjoyed the being able to predict and look into what was needed in the future and how to control your Eclipse bar accordingly, having that taken away from you and literally being the boat on the waves might actually come as a big fucking bummer. And I certainly felt it. I could only play it for a couple of days and then I was like, you know, I get this, and it's been reduced to a kind of flat. It's been made flat is my conclusion on it, is that the spec feels flat where once it felt magnificent. Being in Eclipse meant something. Right now it doesn't. It doesn't mean a whole lot at all. You're now, in fact, Eclipse exists merely to tell you whether you have Sunfire or Moonfire or to cast Wrath or Starfire. Other than that, your choices lie completely in when you use your Star Surge, and that's where it's coming from now. They've basically stripped away all the other stuff, which a lot of you will have found fun. And they have give you this new Star Surge system where you have the 3 charges, they can proc again, and you have to decide when you want to use them. Now that, so some people mean, oh, well, preach that, surely that's where the actual crux of the class comes from. Not really. And I say that because it's actually a pretty solid system. If you take something like Euphoria, which swaps you between Solar and Lunar very quickly, there are only really simple occasions that you can cast Star Surge in order to gain the benefit of either Lunar Empowerment or Solar Empowerment. That is directly as soon as it changes. As soon as you see your Moonfire swap to a Sunfire, go ahead and cast that Star Surge, because that's going to work for while you're at the Solar Peak and on the way back down. And similarly with the Lunar, as soon as you see your Sunfire changed over to Moonfire, cast the Star Surge, because that's going to get the full benefit. If you don't take Euphoria and you take something like Balance of Power or Stellar Flare, it's delaying it by 1 second, so you had 1 cast in. And therefore, it's not a great choice. It's quite nice that these charges are aligned with Starfall. But I have to say, and many of you will notice this, Old School Moonkins won't give a shit, because Starfall has been one glorious and pitifully annoying spell. But the actual Starfall right now, if you're not taking the Glyph of Aligned Stars, is absolutely nightmarish, because Starfall will wreck a whole instance without questions asked. And I think we did show this on the stream, if you guys want to go check the VOD of that, was that one Starfall without the Glyph absolutely will just wreck your entire group, and therefore you're going to have to take the Glyph of Aligned Stars and then swap it out for raids where you don't need it. All these kind of things are going on, but that's traditional Starfall stuff, so nothing to really worry about there. That's my conclusion on it. Is it bad? No. No, it's not bad. It's not. And there is some choice in there. But I think those choices are so much less interesting than they used to be. I've read the math. Don't worry about it for those of you trying to keep up to date and using Glyph of Celestial Alignment, which is pretty much a requirement now, all that kind of stuff, which will probably go live, I would imagine. And it just feels flat, where once it felt magnificent. It felt like one of the kings. I actually said this and the Windwalker Monk were a step ahead of game design in comparison to the other classes. I talked about the 3 tiers of class design and how the Moonkin and the Windwalker were in the 3rd tier. They were at the top. They were at the pinnacle. And it's quite sad to see where the Windwalker has kind of retained that. Windwalker certainly has retained some of that. The Moonkin seems to have been pulled away by taking the choice out of the player's hands and just letting you ride the wave that Blizzard has told you, this is the wave, you can't change it, you can't alter it, you can't do anything. It won't go faster, it won't go slower. It will just keep going. Forever and ever and ever, it's one constant pace. There you go, guys. I hope that helps. It's good for some, bad for others. There you go. Bye-bye.